not going to reach fruition for the current fiscal year, she and the committee are beginning to, or well into the process of expressing concern about whether we're going to meet our obligations for the current year. So the topic was broached at the planning team, as you know, Mel, and I know that there is some consideration on the town side to freezing hiring. That's one way to address that problem. Another thing that's under discussion are some changes in a copay for employees who use North Reading to acquire their health insurance. Maureen just alluded to. That would save 6 figures in this year alone, but there are several hurdles that have to be crossed before that can happen. And thirdly, there was some discussion, no conclusion was reached, but there was some discussion about whether the school department and or the town can revert money in this fiscal year. Meaning, reversion, of course, is a way of just saying, we're not going to spend this amount that has been appropriated, and then that would help us through the end of the year. So I'm not sure any definitive decisions were made at this first meeting, but it was a general discussion.
I think that the key issue for us is we had deferred $50,000 in small cap on the April town warrant, hoping to get that from free cash, and we were basically told that finance planning that $50,000 will not be there. I think those are items that we need, and I know the discussion basically was, can we come up with the $50,000 at this time? Of course, we're 2 months 2 months into our budget. I think if those items, I don't, was it a copier? I'm not clear what the $50,000 was for at that point.
It was a series of furnishings, photocopier technology. It was all of those items that the individual school budgets can't fit into their 2% budget.
Right.
Bookcases, furniture, it's all the things that they've been holding off on. Their budgets are so 2% increase each year. So I could bring a formal list to the committee, but it was a series of probably 100 items in that category.
I guess the question for you, which we've had some limited discussion on, is can we find that $50,000 now? But what does that mean if 3 months down the road we have another student move in with special ed requirements? But the bottom line is we're not going to get the $50,000 in free cash. That was clear. The free cash, there were also some town items that aren't going to get paid for. Basically, the snow and ice budget alone is eating up a large portion of the free cash that's available. So I guess if we need those items, you'll work through the budget, but obviously carefully on each one of them.
It's called parent board.
Yeah, I mean, 50,000 is a lot to ask a parent board to raise at this time. But I'm just assuming that you will comb through the budget and those items that are really required. And again, we're getting to the point of what's really required versus what's required versus, gee, I'd like to have that. And my experience on my 4+ years on this board has been, we don't have a lot of extravagance, and most of the things we ask for are really required. And I'm assuming that that's the case with that $50,000 that we had requested and put off.
That's exactly what we'll do. And at the risk of repeating myself, it's important to note that for probably 5 or 6 straight years, we've only increased the expense side of our budgets by 2% every year. And that's less than the rate of inflation. That's less than the cost of energy. I mean, all of those things. So it's pretty difficult, not impossible, but it's pretty difficult to find money on the expense side of the budget for that reason. And you can look at our budget booklets and go back and trace that 2% increase every year. So to your point, yeah, I think what we need to do is prioritize those items that were anticipated for that small capital expenditure and prioritize them. And probably we will work with the school principals to wait a bit, because they weren't expecting those funds until April anyway. So I think our best plan, our best bet is to prioritize them, wait and see how the fiscal year unfolds. It's still only first week of September, so I'd hate to make any difficult commitments that we couldn't back off of.
Anything we can put off, obviously. We should. The other question I know was raised in that story was that you mentioned the hiring freeze, and I don't think we're gonna make a blanket statement here right now, other than to say that if a teacher leaves our district, you can be assured we'll be hiring a teacher to replace that teacher. I mean, that's a given, and I think we'll definitely be doing that. We can't leave a classroom of students without a teacher, so, but beyond that, I don't think we have any statements to make at this time on hiring freezes. Any other comments? Thanks. Okay, now we can get to the proposal for the World Affairs Club from Mr. Kinsopoulos. Looks like it's pretty straightforward. It's submitted by North Reading High School Social Studies teacher, Mr. Soteris Kinsopoulos. He's positioning this World Affairs Club as having the potential to be an exciting opportunity for students to learn more about world affairs and also to engage in the World Quest competition, which looks like it's some sort of contest that involves high schools, and looks like it's held in Boston in January. It looks like a club that is interesting. You know, one of the things I talked about when I spoke to the teachers is that growing need on their first day of school is a growing need every year for us students to become more worldly citizens, and I think this is the kind of activity we should be encouraging, where kids can become more aware of what's going on in the world outside of North Reading, current events and the like. So this to me looks like a good idea. Anybody have any comments on this?
It also picks up from the student reps. It was one of their goals to increase student awareness at the high school of current events, civic issues, both local, state, and national, and globally too. So this is certainly has my recommendation. It's a pilot.
Right.
I know to get programs like this, you need the staff member that really is excited about the topic and will engage kids. So, I think it's great that we have a staff that's still, eager to do that. So I'd make a motion to approve.
And that would be a motion by Mrs. Buck, a second by Mr. Bowers. And that would be for a 2-year pilot, correct, David? Is that how we work
We
it?
should do it once. Well, it is for a 2-year pilot.
Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda, we have an item for discussion, which is the governor's readiness project, which has been out in the media for about a month now or so. It came out over the summer when maybe a lot of people weren't paying attention. It's a pretty thick packet of information. There are not a lot of specifics in it. There's a lot of good ideas. There's some short, medium, and long-term ideas. And I think David just wanted to, actually, I know Mrs. Bach and I had asked that we start beginning discussion of this, just to make, if people aren't aware of what's going on, some of the directions in which the governor is hoping to move with public education in the state. David?
What I hope is that this become, not at every meeting, but periodically throughout the year, that the school committee engage in a discussion about some of the goals. And I think it's also a springboard to involve various groups within the community, from the school councils to the PTOs to our new organization, Stand for Children, and North Reading United for Education, and other groups to really come together to talk about where are public schools going, what kinds of skills will be needed for students to be successful in the 21st century. And you really need to applaud the governor for very quickly in his administration to pull together a vast number of not just educators, but citizens, people in business, and other organizations throughout the Commonwealth around a number of themes. And actually, at the very end of the report, you can see the broad representation on all of these so-called readiness task forces. And I think for tonight, the quickest way to look at this report is to turn to page 31, because it summarizes the goals. And without reading through each one of these, just what the Readiness Project does is to set out, to sort of take education reform and to expand it forward through the year 2020, actually. And this report breaks it down in terms of short-term, medium, long range, and then long range through the year 2020. But there are basically four different goals. And the first goal, in my mind, focuses heavily on getting children ready for school. And so the focus is around early childhood. You see that there's a talk about developing a readiness passport, which basically is saying before children enter into school, they need to be prepared to do that. And while I think in North Reading, we do that, and parents and families do that very well, when you think about the Commonwealth and you think about the large number of children who are not ready to enter into the public school, either because of lack of readiness in literacy, the issues of multiple languages that are spoken, and or the social emotional issues. But the first goal focuses on not just the curriculum and the organization, but the funding that would be needed. And they also, this first goal also talks about increasing the capacity for adults who are adult learning to help young children to ultimately be ready. The second goal focuses on transforming the whole business of teaching and administration, so that you've heard some initial proposals here to have a statewide teacher contract, to look at differentiated pay, to look at the incentives to bring people into education. And I will say, over the last several years, we are having an increasingly more difficult time, even in North Reading, to bring staff into North Reading, and then to be able to retain that staff and to build stability in our teaching force. So our goal number 2 also talks about building mentor programs, and also targeting teachers in difficult to fill areas, particularly in math and science, and to work with higher education in teacher preparation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You say that we're losing some of our teachers, to a town that maybe pays better, or it's closer to home, but let's say it's a salary issue. Do you think a statewide contract with the teachers would eliminate that
Well,
competition between towns?
I have no idea what that would look like in terms of the proposal. I think it actually may be more of a statewide model for how a teacher's contract, or any contract, principals or other administrators, could be structured, so that rather than individual school committees starting and bargaining individual contracts, there would be a model contract, and that school committees and teachers' unions would be part of the building of that common contract. Ultimately, as long as school committees are still in functioning,
Right, exactly.
that
Yeah.
it would be up to the local school committee then to bargain those contracts with their local employee groups. I think this is an issue that's going to really raise a lot of discussion.
Sure.
statewide. That's a gross understatement.
Yeah, they may want to eliminate school committees before they get to that